Crickets. Nobody else? Okay, I know Lil may have to zoom out of here, so Lil, if you don't mind, um, I'll go ahead and have you show yours. And you can just say, show it from where you are. The Fifth Amendment. Cool. Very good. So did you guys see how her turns look differently using the palette versus what you get with Spot? Sure, if Lil wants to do it again, you can see it again. So in looking at that one, how many of those were moves and how many of those were turns? Can you tell? Two turns. She set it up to be slower. That's the nice thing about turns with the Artiste is that you can make them the speed that you want. So if you want to do a really slow rotation or turn, you can. If you want to make it really quick, you can. You can do it either way. So she has two turns and then three moves for her 5 moves total. Okay, so thank you very much, Lil. Yes, Megan, exactly. You can make a turn however you want. And like we said, you can, because a turn is essentially the same thing as a move, you can stack them. So if you wanted to do a complete rotation, there are other ways to do that. But for now, you could do it with 2 180 turns and you could set them the speed that you want. And you could turn left and then turn right. So you can switch the directions. It just gives you a lot more options than you have with Spot, I think, to make the turn a separate move. So that's one of the nice features of it. Okay, Zed, you're up next. Very good. So could you tell just from watching it once how many are turns and how many are moves? Shh, Yummy, you don't count. Yes, 4 and 1. You guys are right. So, and you saw there, Zed's turn was much faster than what Lil used. So again, it gives you a lot of flexibility for how you want your dance to appear. Okay. And we're just touching kind of the tip of the iceberg here. My goal with these classes was to introduce you to the HUDs and get you dancing and to introduce you to the palettes and get you moving. Once we get into, and Yemi and I are still working out the details, but once we get into some of the more advanced classes of all of the abilities of the palette and then some of the more intricate things like doing grouping and using her dance diva and some of those other things, the possibilities just really become enormous. So stick with it. I know some of you have experienced some frustrations along the way, and I'm right there with you. I've banged my head against the wall with this thing more than once, but just keep at it. And Yemi and I will be happy to help anybody that has any kind of questions. I can't always answer them, but I will certainly try. So, okay, so gold stars for Lil and Zed for having their homework done. Okay, so let's move on into the controller marker method. And I think this will kind of help connect how spot on works to with what the artiste does and make it a little more clear if you've been confused along the way. I know I told you initially that the menu method is easiest. I'm going to retract that and say that it's my preferred method just because it's what I'm familiar with. Now that Yemi has revamped the controller marker method, it has a lot of really cool features. And so for the next routine that I create, I'm going to try and use the controller marker method and see how I like it. So, okay, so we're going to use to learn the controller marker method. And if you don't already have your anchor and palette res, go ahead and res both of those because you're going to need them. And then we're going to work with the controller marker method. Yemi, did you get everybody updated copies so they have the mod copy versions now? Okay. Okay, so with the controller marker method, you can add one marker at a time like you do with Spot, or you can choose a certain number of markers to res out all at once. Either method works. It doesn't make any difference because you can add and delete markers, but I'm just going to show you the one at a time method. Now, you should have in your box two controllers. You should have one that is controller 01 and one that is controller 12. Okay. Each marker or each controller reses a minimum of 2 markers, and I'll explain that in a minute, or a maximum of 11 markers. Now I know with Spot On, people have done 40 some waypoints and beyond. I personally have never done routines that I needed that many, so that's up to you. But with the controller marker method, you're limited to a maximum of 11 markers per controller. Okay, so just be aware of that. So once you've opened your box, res your controller. It has a menu in it just like everything else, so click on it and reset it like Yemi said so that it knows that you're the owner since you guys just got yours. And then just go ahead and res it out somewhere near your anchor. So res it out and reset it. You may need to, in the controller, if you have renamed your anchor to something else, you may need to change the name of your anchor, which is in the animations note card inside the controller. So if you edit the controller, there's an animations note card in there. The very first line is the anchor name, so you may need to change that if you've changed your anchor name, which you all should have. So just update that, save your note card, and then reset it. And when you've reset it with the updated name of the anchor, throw an @ symbol out there so I know you guys are all done. Okay, and just a note, if you look at the animations note card, you'll see that there's a lot of entries on it that are similar to things in the palette note card or the movers note card. So like you'll see where it says the default move time, the default turn time. If you would want to change those defaults, then you could do it in here. Just remember that you would need to reset your marker or your controller once you make your changes. We're just going to leave everything as defaults for now. You can change it if you want, but I'm not going to tell you to do that. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is click on your controller and get a menu. And you're going to click on the menu button that says Add Marker, and that's in the middle column, third row down. And when you click that, it's going to res 2 markers. Let me move mine here so you guys can see what it's doing. Okay, so when you click on the controller and click Add Marker, what you get first is 2 markers. And this is a little different than Spot in that for a move with the artiste, we have to have a point A, a starting point, and a point B, an ending point. So from 1A to 2A on your markers is your start move and your end move, basically. Okay, so the 1A is going to be your home position or your start position for where you're going to want your routine to start, whether that's backstage or on stage, whatever it is. So the position of 1A will be where your palette will start, okay? So you'll always have one more marker than you actually have moves and turns. So if you have 9 moves and turns total, you're going to have 10 markers. So then this is essentially just like Spot, except that they're not linked. So you don't have to edit linked parts. You simply grab the marker that you want and move it wherever you want, just like you would edit anything else. Okay, so grab your markers and move them anywhere you want. The pink dots are the direction that your avatar will face when you're dancing or moving, okay? So if you want to turn yourself, you can simply edit the marker and rotate it to face the direction that you want, whatever that might be. So for now, for me, for an example, I'm going to leave my 1A rotated to face 2A, and then I'll move 2A so that it's facing out from the stage, okay? And you can rotate yours however you want. One of the other nice features that Yummy has added is that there is an auto rotate button. And what that means is if you don't want to have to figure out all the ins and outs of the turns and you're okay with it being a default speed, etc., then you can use the auto rotate button that you find on the controller. So I'm going to res a couple more markers just to show you what it does. And let me move them around so I can show you. Okay, so I've resed a third and a fourth marker, and you can see that both of them, the pink is facing to the side of the stage. Okay, so I, of course, don't want to be facing away from the audience. What I want for an easy thing is that I want each time I move to a marker is that I'm going to move to face the direction of that marker. So the auto rotate button essentially does what Spot does. You click the button and it will move the markers for you so that you're facing the direction of the next move, essentially. Okay, so see where my markers are placed now and where the pink dots are. And then if I click on the controller and I pick the auto rotate button, they all move. 1A is now pointing at 2A, 2A is pointing at 3A, and 3A is pointing at 4A. So if you don't want to mess with rotating everything yourself, that's a quick and easy way for the controller to figure out your turns for you. Okay? The only thing to be aware of if you use the auto rotate is that to remember that with Artiste, the moves count as turns, or turns count as moves. So if I add all of those turns in, I'm adding that number of moves. Okay? So just be aware of that. You can, like you can with Spot, click on each individual marker and get a menu. You can specify a specific animation for a move or a specific animation for the turn. You can specify a turn left, a turn right, or a turn number of degrees. You can specify how long each move takes, just like you can with Spot. You can specify how long each turn takes. If you want to just use the defaults, then you don't need to mess with those. But if you wanted to have, say, one slow turn and then one quick turn, you could specify that per marker. And you can also put in the pause or what Spot calls sleep times for each turn and each move. So maybe you want to start out facing the audience and then your first move is actually a slow turn. Okay, and then maybe you want to pause and then move to the next waypoint. However you want to configure it, you can do all of that using the menus on each marker. Using the menus on each marker, you can also click the hover text and get additional information. So if you see on 1A, I just turned on the hover text. So now not only do I see the name of the marker, I see the move time, I see the number of degrees it's been rotated, I see if I've set a different move time, and then an accumulated move time. Okay. If you don't want all that information, you can just click hover text and turn it off. Okay. So lots of options. So for each of the two markers that you have resed, remember you're only going to have one move. So on the 2A, let me think about that. Would they do that on the 1A or the 2A, Yummy? If I wanted them to specify a sleep time or whatever. Well, I guess it doesn't matter. You can do it on either one. If you want to do the auto rotate, make your turns yourself, however you want to do it, just put in some individual information for each of your markers that you have out. Whether that's a move time, a turn time, a pause time, just take a minute or so and put some information in. And when you're done, throw me that @ symbol. And if you have any questions, feel free to shout those out. Okay, bye, Lil. people having issues with them not being copy mod. Okay, so hopefully you all have something put in there, even if it's just a sleep time or a move time or whatever. And when you are making your own route, of course, you can fiddle with it as much as you like. But for now, we're just going to assume that your route is, you're happy with the way it is. Okay, so for example, I'm just going to leave mine the way it is. So once you're done and you're finished with the route and you've put in all your turns and your sleep times, your pauses, whatever, then you click on the controller and get the blue menu, and you will see a dump moves button. It's in the third column, second row. Okay. When you click that button, the dump moves button, it will generate chat and local for you with all of your moves. Okay. So instead of having to do like we did with the marker, the menu method, where you start move, end move, dump move, copy and paste it, start move, end move, dump move, copy and paste it. With this one, this method, you can get all of your markers where you want them, get your turns set up the way that you want them, and then you just press that dump moves button and it puts everything in chat for you, including the initial offset information. And I'm just going to copy paste mine to show you what it looks like. So I've got that initial offset, so I know that that's going to be the initial offset from my palette. That'll be the home position. And then I know that I've got 6 moves. I've got a move, then a turn, a move, a turn, a move, and a turn. Okay? And it has figured out the default times. So you're seeing each move is 3 seconds and each turn is 0.4 because that's the default. And then on the turns, it has figured out the degrees for me of the angles. Okay, and I didn't put in any sleep times or pause times, so mine are all 0 at the end. But if you put in a sleep or a pause time, then you'll have numbers there at the end. Okay, so that's one of the nice things about this method, is that rather than dump, move, copy, paste, dump, move, copy, paste, you can kind of get everything situated where you want and then just do one dump, move, copy and paste once, and you're done, hopefully. So that makes it a little bit faster than the other method. Okay, in addition to, it does some of the figuring for you, so that makes it a little faster than the other method. Okay, so is everybody able to generate, using the dump moves button, generate some chat into local with your vectors and turns and moves? Okay, so if you got the chat in local, then what you would do is copy all of that information into your palette in the moves note card. You would then save the note card and then either reload your note card or reset your palette, whichever way would get that information back in there. Okay, so go ahead and do that. Take all of your information, copy and paste it into your palette in the moves note card. Don't forget that initial offset information as well. Save the note card and then reload or reset your palette. Okay. Then when you've done that, you can sit on the palette and test all moves to see what happens with your route. Okay. You don't have to sit on the palette. You could just hit test all moves to see what it does. But if you want to see your turns and things, how they look, you can sit on the palette while you test it. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that. Save your note card, reset your palette, and then test your moves. Well, woohoo, I see Zed's moving. I see Megan's palette moving. Oh, okay. Thought maybe it kicked you off there. Is that not where your last marker was? Well, it appears to be putting you on Megan's last marker, so I'm not sure why. It could just be one of those things that it's never really been tested when more than one person is doing it at the same time in the same place. So, but it works correctly when you're not all trying to do it once, I assure you, because I did it. So, yeah, and if there's perm issues, that may be part of it too. Okay, but you can see how it works. Now, for some more of the coolness, now that Yummy has updated it, um, we all know how much we loathe when we make changes with other tools of having to get a note card, copy and paste, save the changes to update the note card, then test it again, then make our changes, then get a note card, then copy and paste, and on and on and on. Okay? So the cool thing that Yummy has added in is that not only can you just do a dump moves at the very end and get all of the chat at once, you don't have to necessarily copy everything into the moves note card yet. If you click on the controller, there is a menu button that says Update Palette. It's the very first button. If you click on that when you have your palette resed, it will send your moves and turns to the palette without you having to copy and paste anything. So you can use that button, update your palette. It will temporarily update the moves in the palette. You can sit on the palette and test it, make changes or tweaks as you need to, use the update palette button until you're happy with it. And then when you're happy with all of your changes, you can do your dump moves and just do the copy paste once. So that, I think, is a huge time-saving feature rather than having to do a copy paste and save a note card every single time you make any kind of little change. Because I know there's a million times that I've been doing a dance and I'll tweak it, a tenth of a second, 5/10 of a second, and then I have to save and do everything again, and this takes some of that out of it. So huge time saver, I think. Now, the thing to remember about the update palette button is that once you're happy with it, you do have to remember to do the dump moves and copy and paste it into the moves note card. If you don't copy and paste it, the last one, that last time, and you reset your palette, you'll lose all your moves. Okay? That update palette button is just temporary, but it will save you time. What do you mean by the numbers path? Well, I'm almost done, so let me finish up, and then yes, I will be happy I will be happy to give you step by step. Okay. So just like the palettes, you can hide and show the markers. There's a hide markers button, so you can hide them and then click show and they will show. There is the hover text, which I showed you, that you can add. Oh no, that's the hover text for the controller itself, sorry. There is, on the controller button, or on the menu, there is a place where you can add nicknames. So if you want to give a move a nickname, like, I don't know, you have a set built and you're, moving from the chair to the table or whatever, and you want to make a note to remind you that that's what that move is. You can use nicknames to do that. If you want to, if you're designing it and you have a route that's going to be for a ball sitter, then say you're doing a group number and this route is for a particular person, you can give it a ball sitter name and it will put the name of whatever you put in there. So whether you want to give that the name of the person that's actually going to sit on it or the name of a character that you're designing the route for, whatever. If you decide that you've made a mistake or you need to add in markers, you can do that. There is an insert marker button. The only thing to remember with that is that you cannot insert a marker before marker number 1. Marker number 1 is that home or start position. So if you decide that you want to change the home position or the start position, you would need to move marker number 1 and then you can insert a marker anywhere you want after that. So between 1 and 2, between 3 and 4, between 2 and 3, et cetera, but not before marker number 1. You can also delete specific markers. So if you click on the actual marker itself, you can choose to delete it, and then the other ones will rename themselves just like they would with spot-on waypoints. So if I chose to delete my marker number 3, it deleted that one, and then you see number 4 renamed itself to number 3. Okay. If you want to delete all of your markers, in the controller, there is a kill markers button on that menu, and that will get rid of all of your markers at once. Okay. If you want to change the size or scale of the markers, you can do that. That is in the animations note card, I believe. I didn't make my notes complete. Yeah. There's a scale button or a scale entry in the animations note card in the controller. So if you wanted to make your markers smaller, you could reduce the scale just for personal preference if you want to do that. The animations note card is also where you would list any specific animations that you might want to use for walks or turns. If you decide that you're going to use specific animations for walks and turns, remember that you would need to load those animations into your palette in order for it to work correctly. Okay? Not in your HUD, but in the palette. There are a million options available for the palettes, as we've discussed, so I really encourage you to read book 11, which is the book that came with the controller markers. Yummy's done a really good job of thoroughly documenting all the changes that she's made for the controller marker method. So just reading through there, and there's some things in there that I'm not going to spend a lot of time covering that are options you can use. But that book, book 11, is up to date. So it has lots of good information in it. A couple of other things that I wanted to cover, just because we're all used to certain tools and everybody has certain things that they want to do. So if you don't like having your turns be separate moves, there is a way to change that. In the Moves note card, there is an entry called Include Rotations. And if you change that from off to on, then your turns will behave like they do when you use Spot. That is, they will happen gradually as you move, rather than being individual moves that you specify. So for example, if I turned on the include rotations, instead of turning from 1A, moving to O2, and then turning again, my turn would gradually happen as I moved from 1 to 2. Yes, and I misspoke, and Yummy's correcting me. Spot, as we discussed earlier, it's a turn and then a move. With the include rotations that I was just speaking about, your turn happens over the course of the move. Does that make sense to everybody? Have I bored you all to sleep? Is anyone paying attention? No, I don't think you can, but I'll let Yummy answer that. So either the turns are separate moves, as we've been working with, or if you turn on that include rotations, then you won't have any specific turns. It'll just be gradual turns through your movements. And once you work with the markers and controllers, you'll see the difference. Just try doing it and see how it changes what your route looks like. Mirroring, I know that was something that you guys are probably going to ask about. You can mirror the routes that you have created, but in order to do that, you need to make sure that you're using the anchor that has the scripts inside, not just an object that you've given an anchor name. Okay? It's a menu in the anchor. Is that correct, Yummy? That's what I says in my notes, but I don't remember that part of it. So which menu button is it on the anchor that will mirror it for me? Spot, just one. You do a shift copy and then it has a menu button. You click mirror and it mirrors it for you along one axis. There's no options with Spot. So if you decide that you would want to mirror something, you can go to your anchor menu. There is a reorient button. Click on that, and then it's the offsetting button, correct, Yummy? Okay. And then when you press the offset button, you'll see there's a mirror on X or mirror on Y. And then you can choose which way you want to mirror. And if that doesn't make any sense, there's a really good explanation in the book. So I would encourage you again to read the book. It looked to me reading through it as if mirroring on the Y-axis would be what Spot does. So that's generally probably going to be what you would want to do. You can, if you don't want to mirror, you just want to copy routes, you can shift copy your palettes. You would just then need to update the home or initial position of the copied palettes so that they start in the correct place relative to your anchor. Yeah, the initial offset. You can add moves to the end of your route if you've used the controller marker method without necessarily regenerating all your markers. You could just use the menu method, the start move, end move, dump move that we did before, to add in additional moves as you need them. You can work backwards like you can with Spot and generate markers from a palette, which is like loading your mover note card into the ring to generate your waypoints again. However, I'm not going to cover it here. Just know that it's an option if you need to do that. The instructions are in the book. And then last piece, now that we have spent all of this time making our lovely routes and moving ourselves around, we need to know how to trigger them to move. Okay? And as always with Artiste, there's more than one way to accomplish that. And I've put these commands in your note card, so don't think that you have to remember them. They're in there for you to reference. There are two ways to trigger. Well, there's more than two ways, but there are two ways that I'm going to cover for you here. You can trigger the palette via your dance sequence, which is generally what I do, because that way when I press play, I start moving and my palette starts moving at the same time. So when I hear the music and I press play, I start dancing and I start moving, and I don't have to worry about any kind of delays or anything. So in order to make your palette start at the same time that your dance starts, when you press play on your HUD, you would simply put this command at the beginning of your sequence. Okay? So this command says that there's a palette named O1A, and it needs to do move 0, means that it's going to do all of its moves. And then the pipe character and the .001 are in there because it's part of the sequence. It has to have some sort of a duration. Okay? And then immediately after that, you would just have the rest of your dance sequence. So when you press play, it's going to appear that it's all starting simultaneously, because that .001 we don't see with human eye. Okay? You can, if you don't want your palette to do all of the moves from the get-go, you can tell your palette to do a single move or a move range. So I'm going to give you an example here. You might have a dance sequence that looks like this. So initially you tell palette O1A to do move number 1. And while you're doing move number 1, you're doing dances number 1 and number 2. And then when dance number 2 ends, you can then tell palette O1A to do moves 2 through 9. Oh, it has to be O2? I thought you told me it could be single numbers. Okay, so for single moves, it doesn't have to be double digit, but if you're going to do a move range, it has to be double digits. Okay. Add that into your notes. I'll add that into mine, because I did not understand that. Okay, so single moves just need one digit, like the move 1, move 2, etc. But if you want to do a move range, like moves 2 through 9, then it needs to be move O2 hyphen move O9. Has to be double digits. Okay. Okay. So above 10, it has to be the M move, and then as if it's a range. Gotcha. Okay. Okay, so hopefully you all follow that. If you didn't, I'll explain it. Okay, so using those options, You can trigger, again, the palette to move through its whole series as you're dancing, which is generally what I do, or you can do a select move range. The reason that I think that offers you flexibility is, say, for example, you have two dancers and you want one to start dancing and start moving immediately. The other person you want to start dancing but not moving immediately. So you could, because they're in two different sequences, trigger the first person's palette and do the entire range of moves, and at the same time in the second person's sequence have them do whatever part of the sequence you want first and then trigger their palette to move. Does that make sense to everybody? Hoping I haven't lost all of you. Okay, so in addition to triggering the palette via the sequence, you can also trigger the palette via the Auto FX note cards. The thing to remember doing it that way with Auto FX is that you won't start moving as soon as you press play. Okay, let me back up a minute. Explain the difference between Artiste and what? About the move ranges, you mean, Yummy? Or about the start delay? Well, I think the important thing to remember about both of those is that there is no capability with Spot or any other tool that I'm aware of that you can do a range of moves. Simply do one move and then the palette just stops until you tell it to do the next one. We have the ability with other tools to add in a pause time or a sleep time, but not an ability to tell it to stop, wait, and then go on. And certainly not the ability to tell it not only just individual moves, but to do a range, to go from move 1 to move 4, then stop and wait for the next command. So I think that's a big but flexible option of flexibility for the artiste as well, is that you do have that option, which, as far as I'm aware, you don't with other tools. Most other tools, once you press play, you're going. There's no stop and come back. Speaking of stop and come back, where did Path go? Did he just poof? Or does his palette disappear? He disappeared like I did because I didn't have my palette set up right. Okay, so in addition to triggering it via the sequence, you can trigger it via AutoFX. The thing to remember is that your AutoFX is tied to your events. So since your first event generally needs to be, he's across the road, poor Beth. So since your events need to be at least 2 seconds, generally event number 1 is going to be a 2-second delay. So you're going to press play and then not move for 2 seconds. Not an issue as long as you account for that in your routine. Okay? So you're not going to, if you use the AutoFX method, you're not going to move as soon as you press play. You won't move until your AutoFX command fires. And the AutoFX command looks like this. So with an AutoFX command, the 1 is the number of the event. So whether it's number 1, number 5, whatever you want to put in there. R means that it's going to speak across the region. P, it's going to talk to a palette. The O1A, it's going to talk to the palette with that whatever name you put there. So whether that's O1A, O1B, O4A, whatever. And then again, you can tell it to do all moves at once, which is that move 0, or you can tell it to do single moves or move range, whatever it is that you want to do. Okay? So those are the ways that you can trigger your palette to start moving so that your avatar starts moving. Okay? Any questions about that part of it? Did I lose anyone else besides Path? Okay. Well, and I figured I'd have to talk to Path afterwards anyway, so it's fine. There he is. Okay. So one last thing, so we have a few minutes left. I figured that you guys would want to know about how to create object movers. Because all this time we've been working on creating movers that will move our avatars, but creating an object mover is a little different with Artiste. And another thing that gives you more flexibility than you get with other tools. The first biggest thing for me is that in order to create an object mover with Artiste, you don't have to link your object to a palette. No linking is necessary. You simply make the object itself a palette. You take the note cards and the scripts out of the palette and put them into your object. Now, that being said, there is a final pose, that champion pose that is on your note card. It will look for that pose animation in your object, so you will get a script error. To get rid of the script error, simply take the champion name out of the final pose entry, or you can just live with the script error. Nobody's going to see it with you, but you. So either way, it won't affect, the script error won't affect how your object mover moves. Okay. And also, if you're going to make an object mover, you need to turn sittable and animatable off on the palette note card, because those will also give you script permission errors, because it's expecting someone to sit on the object mover, which if it's an object mover, no one's going to do, so you can just turn those off. Again, the palette object mover will still work, but the script errors can be annoying, especially in the middle of a performance. So, but yeah, it's very simple. And then once you have the note cards and the script in your object, you can simply program your moves just like you would with anything else. So that's it for the palette class. Moving a sit-on thing. I don't know what you mean, Zed. A thing you are sitting on which is moving. Well, I think there would be two ways to approach that. You could okay, so let's take the motorcycle example. You could make the motorcycle an object mover and then so that's one palette. And then make a separate palette that is an avatar mover, and then simply line them up so that it looks like you're riding the motorcycle. Does that make sense? So in that case, you would have two palettes, one that's an avatar mover and one that is an object mover. Or you could make the motorcycle a palette, which is going to be an avatar mover because someone is going to sit on it. In that case, you would only have one palette, but that palette would look like the motorcycle, but would need to be sittable and animatable, and then you would likely want to put the default sit animation as the animation that makes you look as if you're sitting on the motorcycle. Does that make sense? Okay. So you could do it either way. It's just a matter of whether you want to only have one palette or two. I could see someone wanting to do that though, if you wanted to make it look as if you were Yeah, like being a stunt person where you wanted to stand up as if it, so the motorcycle looks like it's moving, but then you stand up and dance all fancy on it. That's very true, Zed. You could do other things on a motorcycle. A handstand, for instance. So I think it just comes down to a matter of what your intent is but with the motorcycle. But I mean, you could do either way. And that I think is, again, one of the great things about Artiste is that you have that flexibility. And, you know, you could just make it one palette and probably make it do all of the things that you wanted to do. So that's the end of the intermediate Artiste class on Avatar Movers. Okay. Hopefully I explained it all so that you understand it. If not, I will be hanging around for questions. And as I said, Yemi and I are still working out details, but we are planning on doing a series of probably one-off classes. So you can pick and choose which ones you want to come to. I mean, if you want to come to all of them, great. But we're going to talk about things, the other abilities of the palette, things like tip, rotate, raise and lower, shatter, topple, some of the cool things that let you add in those wow moments to your acts. Yeah, the swing. Um, and then, of course, Yummy will be teaching things like the throw and grouping and some things like that. So we haven't quite worked out all of the details yet. So once we get that, I will publish all of that, and I'm sure she will too, with dates and times and things like that. Some of it's really easy to learn. It's just a matter of knowing what commands to use. Some of it takes a little more involved learning, but definitely want to be showing you guys how to do some of the more cool features of the palette. So that's it for me. If you guys have had all your questions answered and you're good to go, then you're free to leave. If you have questions, I will certainly hang around for a bit and explain anything that needs explaining. I am going to do another walkthrough. I'm not sure what you mean by for this class. I'm planning on doing another video walkthrough to show you some of the other abilities. Is that what you mean? Like I've got a couple of routines that I just did yesterday that I used raise and lower, for example. So I was going to do a walkthrough on those to show you how I did it. And then I haven't learned all of them yet. So as soon as I learn some of them, yes, the intention is for us to have some short videos on those abilities for reference. You're all very welcome. Thank you so much for coming to class. I really appreciate it. They're metaphorical stars and lashes. Do you want to mention the producer series, Emmy? Don't open the box, Megan. Yeah, Zed has been helping Yummy test everything. And so she's found some issues. I have a couple of pieces of it, but I didn't get the producer series, so I don't have all the pieces of it, I don't think. So that's one of my goals is to get some of the pieces put up out here so you guys can see. The producer series path is for basically people who own their own venues that want to have an all artiste venue. So it has a director that lets you log people in and out for certain things. It controls, for example, the curtain. So no more if you have a clickable curtain or a commandable curtain of people opening it and closing it and opening it and closing it because it's laggy or whatnot. It is tied into the tip jar. There's some things that you put backstage that let you know if someone is on stage, whether their set is rezzed and still on stage, etc., etc. Yeah, it just helps things run smoother so that you don't have people tripping all over each other. Yeah, the curtain I think is the biggest issue because it seems like there's always venues that, you know, somebody gets curtain happy or even audience members sometimes get curtain happy and then it's open, close, open, close, open, close, and everybody gets frustrated. Yeah, no more having to remember to log into the tip jar. It'll do it for you automatically. And of course, there's some things that you have to configure, but yeah, a lot of cool things that you can do with it. So I'm excited to see. Yummy's got a bunch of projects in the works, so yeah. Oh, and I forgot that. Um, yeah, the producer series lets you have set up angles for audiences. So when they sit in your seats, you can control their cameras. Well, with the way that it's set up, the person who's performing is the one who logs in. So the commands would all be given through their HUD. So it's not like they have to find the curtain and then click on it. It should all be automatic. So nobody's hunting around for the, especially like there's a venue that I dance at that I forgot completely about having to click on the curtain because it doesn't have a channel chat command. I actually have to physically click on it, and it was buried underneath one of my props. So frantically during rehearsal, I'm trying to click on this stupid curtain. So yeah, I think the ones that you can use the chat commands are better anyway, just because it does allow you to have more control, and then you don't need to have everybody clicking on it to get it open and closed. So yeah, that is something from that you can do from the HUD with the director, the producer series. So Yeah, thank you again, Rebecca, for doing that, for recording everything, because I do think that will come in handy. But Path, I'm more than happy to stay and go over it again if you have time, or to set up some time with you when you do have time to go over it all. When is it going to be ready to go for us to come see it, Yummy? Okay, cool. Yeah, because I definitely want to come see. Yeah, I think once she gets that set up and you guys can go see it, it'll be a lot more impressive for you to see it in action than for somebody to just tell you what it does. Cool. Ah, yeah. Yeah, I think that's the point of the producer series is to take into account some of those things that we all know unfortunately happen, like crashes and things like that. So, yep, it most certainly does. Okay, well, that's all I have for you guys today. So, like I said, I'll hang around for a bit if you want to ask questions or whatnot. Otherwise, you are free to go. And I'm going to go ahead and turn voice off. So, thank you all again for coming. I really appreciate it.